Actually, the card does read resident alien.
Hi, my name is Chris Donlan, and I'm a local resident. And my question's directed to Miss Mayster. You know, it's kind of ironic that this unholy alliance has developed between the so-called and misnamed liberal progressive left, who think of themselves as being partisans of the workers and social justice on the one hand, and corporate America. I don't see any difference between your position and that taken by the Wall Street Journal. You want to flood this country with cheap immigrant labor. You don't give a damn about American workers or the American underclass. There's millions without health insurance, millions living in poverty. Your sole concern is with the other, with the aliens, with the foreigners. You could care less about Americans. You feel no loyalty whatsoever to your own countrymen or any concern for the future of your country. And I'd like to know where you get your funding from, because I know the Latino racist group La Raza gets a lot of its funding from the Ford Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation. Where do you get your money from? I know these pro-illegal alien demonstrations that were held recently in May. A lot of the big wineries and the big businesses in Sonoma County let their workers off for the day and sponsored a lot of these groups. This Coalition for Immigration Rights. We have an immigration attorney who makes probably a six-figure income or more every year helping these people come here. He doesn't care about American workers either. So where does Catholic Charities get some of this funding from? What foundations, private foundations, fund your operations? I'd like to know. Thank you.
Boy, you don't know me at all, and you've made some pretty strong accusations about my not caring about the underclass in this country, given that's been my career, is working with people who don't have access to services. And I would hope that we keep this debate without putting each other down. But in terms of, and if you're asking, let me make sure I understand your question. Are you asking where the funding is for the Immigration and Resettlement Services Program for Catholic Charities, or help me understand what your question is?
Well, I'd like to know where you get a lot of your funding from. I know the Catholic Church itself probably funds a lot of your operations, but actually, many of these immigrant advocacy groups are financed by big business in this country, by private foundations like the Rockefeller and Ford. That's something that so-called partisans of social justice and people who consider themselves to be on the left and critical of capitalism should keep in mind, should really think about that. And I'd like to know where a lot of your funding comes from.
The Immigration and Resettlement Services Program that I direct is not an immigrant advocacy group per se. We provide immigration legal services to people who are legally eligible under the law to either reunite with their families, to become U.S. citizens. We teach English, we provide citizenship education, we provide services to victims of crime and domestic violence who have legal remedies under the law. A little over half of our budget for this program, this Catholic Charities has 23 programs in 6 counties serving people who are homeless, people who are hungry, seniors. We provide mental health counseling. We provide a variety of housing and shelter options. My program is one of those 23, Immigration and Resettlement Services. We also resettle refugees fleeing political persecution. We provide legal services to people who are political asylees, who have been granted that status because of fleeing persecution in their home countries. A little over half of the budget for my program comes from the immigrants, from fees that the immigrants pay and citizenship applicants pay who are seeking the legal services that we provide. The others, 45% or so, are from private donations, a very small percentage from private foundation, no money from Ford, no money from Rockefeller, no money specifically from the Roman Catholic Church, and a small grant through unrestricted or through the state of California that allows, supports immigrants in becoming citizens, legal immigrants in becoming citizens. So that is where the funding is for the program that I run. For the other parts of Catholic Charities, the answer varies depending on the type of service and the type of funding stream.
So philosophically, you would favor complete open borders.
No, I'm not saying that.
Well, I'd like to hear what restrictions you like.
You should ask a question. I think you already lost the argument on the funding.
I don't think I did lose the argument.
Well, then what's your next question?
You could try to gloss it over.
I'll try not to gloss it. What is your next question?
Well, philosophically, do you think there should be any restrictions at all in immigration? I mean, I hear proponents of open borders use all this humanitarian gibberish to support their argument. So, be compassionate, care about the unfortunate.
Sir, what you're trying to do
what are the limits you would support in immigration? What is too many? 10 million, 20 million, 50 million? 10 million, 50 million, what's enough? You won't answer that, I'm sure.
Well, if you give her a chance, I'm sure she will.
I'm glad you're trying.
Your question is how many, do you want me to respond, Herb, or would you rather me?
No, we can.